All right, check out Wednesday's top NBA scores. So there was a couple games. So Miami takes a 2-0 series lead over the Joel Embiid-less 76ers. Then you also have the Suns who take a 2-0 series lead over Dallas. So Jimmy Butler there, 52 points. I mean, Luka around the same neck of the woods. Chris Paul, like majority of his fantasy points there, 100% coming in the fourth quarter. Dude absolutely erupted. I think he's going to be turning young, ripe age of 37 here in just a few days. Let's dive into this a little bit. Our NBA panel this morning, DraftKings contributor Matt Meiselman and Nick Friar. Good to see you guys. And then host of the Four Seasons podcast, Ball is Life, Ryan Magdziarz. Good morning, gentlemen. It's good to see everybody today. So Heat with a comfortable win. Friar, what are the chances the Sixers can come back in this thing? Like, do we even know what's happening with Joel Embiid?
I would say the chances they come back in this are zero. As much as I did like them coming into the series with Joel Embiid healthy, he is not. And even when and if he does come back, I don't trust that he's going to be the guy that he can be. The only question to me now is, it's going to be done in 4 games or is it going to be done in 5? I don't think it's going to go 6 because I don't think Joel Embiid is going to be that same guy when he comes back. I think he can give them, 1 win, lift them to that point. But I think what we've seen in this series is the Sixers have been exposed. More specifically, James Harden has been exposed. Doc Rivers as well. We've been reminded how, he's had success over his career, but really he's not as good as we thought he was. And James Harden, I mean, again, it breaks my heart to see James Harden failing in the playoffs yet again. But I think we need to realize that this is what this guy does in the postseason. He is not the alpha. He cannot lead a team, far in the postseason at all. So yeah, I have no problem saying this series is going to be done in 5. It's just a matter of if Embiid comes back, okay, it might not be a sweep.
Ryan, which series out of these two is likely going to end in a sweep?
If I had to choose one, it's this Heat-Sixers game, but I don't think there's zero chance. Like, the Sixers could have a bad pregame meal and have to forfeit. But that's basically it. I don't like their odds. The Heat play such solid defense, and they scheme perfectly. Spo is a mastermind. I don't think that he gets enough credit. But it's just plug and play. As long as you can play defense, you're going to play for the Heat. They're doubling James Harden every single time he crosses half court. They're going to say, okay, Maxey, go beat us, which Maxey played very well last night. But Embiid, I think, helps. If they have any hope, the Sixers in coming back, Embiid's going to have a monster game 3 or 4, but I don't see it happening. I have Heat sweeping.
Matty, I mean, Suns with a convincing win. Like, is it time to start looking at them in a sweep, plus 220? Or the Suns in 5 at plus 170?
I mean, I like the Suns, but I have to respond to the Miami thing. Because if Joel Embiid is playing, I think the Sixers are better than the Heat. I really believe that. And maybe it's a 50% healthy version of Embiid, and then it's a different conversation. But I agree with a lot of what these guys are saying when it comes to James Harden and Doc Rivers. And DeAndre Jordan, of course, is not a very good player, but Embiid fixes all of those problems. I mean, obviously, DeAndre Jordan's not playing very much, if at all, if Embiid's healthy. So I don't think the series is over unless Embiid's not playing. So I'll leave it there. Like, if he's done, they're done for sure. But I don't think the Heat are that great of a team. And we saw different points this year where they were healthy and just weren't good. And Eric Spoelstra was the coach of the team for the whole season, and they still had defensive lapses and offensive lapses. Like, they were not a team that just coasted to the 1 seed. They got out to a really strong start to the regular season, avoided COVID issues and injuries better than most teams, and then kind of backed into the 1 seed while other teams almost wound up catching them. So, like, I think this series is live, but it's all contingent on Embiid. Like, I don't know if he's going to play, and if he doesn't, then this clearly doesn't look very good for Philly. But I think that plus 500 is like a pretty insane value if Embiid is back for Game 3.
All right, so back to the original question. Suns in the sweep, plus 220, or Suns in 5, plus 170?
I think those are fine bets. It's not where I would attack it, though. I think Suns minus 120 to win the Western Conference is really my favorite way to go about betting the Suns right now, because I think the Warriors are just a bit overrated, and I think the Grizzlies are still live in that series. But either way, I think the Suns are a lot better than both of those teams. So I do think the Suns win the series pretty easily. I think those are enticing bets to win in either 4 or 5, but I'm much more excited to just take minus 120 to win the Western Conference.
I mean, Nick, that was a back-and-forth game. The Mavs held a 2-point lead heading into halftime, but it quickly got out of hand in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I know that game one was a lot closer as well, but just I think the Mavericks are overmatched. And it's funny, I look at this too and think, like, how bad does this look for the Jazz too, where I just feel like they should have been able to steal that series. But anyways, on this one, I'm with Suns in 5. I do think they're just a better team. I think they could sweep them, but I think the NBA will intervene and then find somebody out there. I'm sure there's one rep that could stretch a Chris Paul series out there. I don't know exactly who that might be, but I think this is going to be in 5 because just a better team, and it'll be a gentleman's sweep.
All right, Magdziarz, talk to me.
Yeah, Suns in 5, I like plus 170. The end score of a lot of these games don't tell the whole story. Like last night's score was a blowout, but the game wasn't a blowout. And game 1 and game 2, a lot of these series is close, and then there's a run. In either the third, in the Suns' case, the fourth quarter, where Chris Paul looks like he starts to try and take over. And he was talking in the post-game press conference that Theo Pinson on the bench was just talking so much trash, and he said that helped him elevate his game and try to just really stick it to him. So you can't score watch when you're picking and choosing these games. So I think the Mavs will get one of these games where they're at home. I think that they'll adjust and hopefully make changes to where, okay, Chris Paul's going to start trying in the fourth quarter. We're going to have to stop this run if we want to win. So I think as soon as adjustments are made, they catch on to these trends, I think the Mavs steal one. But again, I think the Suns handle this series.
Friar, no games tonight. The other two series, we know they're tied at 1. Memphis plus 235 here to win the series after they were able to salvage a split in the 2 games on their home court. You like those odds by any chance for the Grizz to move on?
You know, my heart likes those odds. I love the Grizzlies, even back to the Mike Conley days, but I can't go with them here because as much as Ja Morant's heroics have kept, even this series and kept them in, made the first game competitive, I just like Golden State too much. I don't think that's enough to beat them. You look at what Desmond Bane's done throughout this series. He's supposed to be your second best scorer. And even in the regular season, we saw him struggle against the Warriors too. Not saying he can't adjust, but I just don't like what we've seen from him so far. And then in that game was a 5-point game, and you had Steph Curry 3 for 11 from 3.
Yep.
Klay Thompson 2 for 12 from 3.
Yep.
I mean, you only win by 5. I feel like that's not going to get done. And this series is going back to Golden State now.
Yeah, that's a good point that Nick makes there, Matt, because the Grizzlies needed bad performances from some of the top dogs on the Warriors, and then they needed Ja Morant to put up almost 50 points, and they still just barely won.
So I actually think that this path to victory is repeatable. Part of it is Gary Payton II is not going to be playing the rest of the series. And that was a similar logical mind versus emotional mind conflict for me because I love Gary Payton II. I've been talking about him being a X factor, low key, important player for this team all year. And in this series, he's the only guy really who can stop Ja Morant. So I was really sad to see him go down. But at the same time, as someone who's backing the Grizzlies in this series, this is a huge help for them. So I think that Morant will have an easy time scoring on this team because the Warriors have no one else who can stop him. And then on the point about Curry and Klay, the Grizzlies are much better defensively now than they were in the regular season. I think Morant is really picking up his effort on the defensive end. And this is a guy where there's no reason why he can't be a great defender. It probably was, inexperience and effort in the regular season. He has all the athletic tools to do it. And I think he's doing it now. And then we're seeing DeAnthony Melton play more, and he's a really good defender too, probably the best on this team. So I think it is a really tough matchup actually for the Warriors. And I like the Grizzlies to win this series. I think these are very close teams. I don't know if I'd pick them if the line was even money. I probably wouldn't at that point, but I do think it's going to be very close. And to me, anything over plus 200 is a really, really strong value here.
Okay, Ryan, do you agree with that? Is this strong enough value where it's you can't ignore it?
No, not necessarily. Matt brings up a good point that Gary Payton is the guy that they would put on Morant. And obviously they need to make adjustments because he went off for 47 or 45 or whatever it was. But you guys nailed it with the Warriors shooting. 7 for 38, 18% from 3 is an anomaly. And I was going to be shocked to go back and look and see if they've ever shot that poorly in a game this season. They actually did. January 5th, they made 5 threes all game, which is the only game all year that they've shot that bad. So I think this is an anomaly. I don't see Memphis winning this series. But there's a role player in this game, in this series, that I kind of like what he did last game, and I think they figured out some stuff. Andrew Wiggins. surprisingly, the only guy that can't knock down open threes. I think he shot 1 for 7. I don't feel confident when he's pulling up from 3. But the offensive rebounds and the rebounding and the stuff inside, when their shots aren't falling outside, go inside. Wiggins has the pogo stick where he jumps up, misses a shot, the quickest second jump in the league that I think I've seen. Look for him to be a sneaky roll guy if you're playing DFS for value plays there.
Okay, well, I'm glad you bring up role players here, Ryan, because the Celtics and Bucks, they're tied at 1 game each, and it's been value plays like a Grant Williams and a Grayson Allen kind of making the difference in each game. So which value player do you think can lead their team to a series victory in that one?
This one is a bit different because I think the Bucks win this series overall, and I think Giannis is the reason for that. I don't see a team stopping Giannis yet for 4 games. But as far as role players go, I think since I have this Bucks narrative of them winning, it's a Bucks wing. And Wes Matthews has been getting the starts, but you got to keep an eye on Wes Matthews, Pat Connaughton, and Grayson Allen. Whoever one of those 3 wings are that's hitting their shots on any given night, it's pretty a lucky thing. You got to start the right one, but Pat Connaughton was chucking last game and Grayson Allen was not, which is surprising because the trend had been Grayson Allen. So it's one of those 3 guys who's just going to have the on night, and you got to hit that.
All right, Friar, 3-point shots probably aren't going to fall as much as they did in Game 2 for the Celtics, but that defense should continue to put pressure on Giannis.
Yeah, and I think the reason Grayson Allen didn't take a whole lot of shots last game, he's too busy trying to pick up his shorts after Jaylen Brown broke his ankles.
Oh, man.
I think that's what it was.
He had him playing Twister, dude.
Yeah, he did. But I think Pat Connaughton, when you're looking from a DFS perspective, Pat Connaughton is a good call. But when we're talking about making a difference for actually winning these ball games, I do agree that Giannis stopping him over 4 games is tough, but we've seen the Celtics kind of slow him down over these first 2 games. Big part of that has been Al Horford, who, not a value player, obviously a starter. He's low, mid-range kind of guy when we're talking about DFS. But Grant Williams is another guy. We saw him step up, and defensively, this is one of the big things that he can do is he can handle an athletic, strong guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Not many can, and when I say handle, there's a big difference between what they did to Kevin Durant and what they did with Giannis and some of these other star players that they can handle. But when you have a guy go and take 27 shots and he puts up 28 points, I mean, you did your job. That's what you got to do against a guy like that. So I think Grant Williams, to me, when you're looking at values, he's the one.
Yeah, he's a role player, but in Game 2, he was a star. Less than 1 minute in the show, Maddie. Who's a value play in this series who can help his team win it?
Well, anyone who's listened to me talk for more than 5 seconds this year knows I'm going to lean towards Nick and the Celtics because that's my team at this point. I just have to. But I think Al Horford is as suited to guard Giannis as just about anybody in the league. And then I do think Grant Williams is that guy who continues to be the bench contributor because Robert Williams just doesn't make as much sense in this matchup. Derek White, I mean, I thought the Celtics would be fine without Smart because of White. That didn't really end up happening. They did win the game, but Derek White didn't even score a point, I think. But it seems like in this series, Grant Williams is the role player they want with their stars as that filler piece. So I think the minutes are going to be there, and for that reason, he probably is a guy who continues to be a strong value play going forward.